so that when we ask you the four most important words that any practitioner sitting across from you can ask you, how do you feel? And you answer that, we get to put how you feel with those labs and pair it up, because the bottom line is that question and your answer to that question is more important than anything that we got out of your blood work.
Welcome to Biohacking with Brittany, where women optimize. I'm your host, Brittany Ford, holistic nutritionist and wellness entrepreneur, and I'm here to help you live in alignment with your body and nature. This podcast blends cutting-edge science with soul-led strategies to support you through every phase of womanhood, from fertility to longevity and everything in between. Each week, we dive into functional medicine, women's health, holistic healing, and biohacking tools that empower you to take control of your wellness journey. Let's redefine what it means to thrive together. Today, I had the privilege of speaking to Dr. Amie Hornaman, who is a friend that I made at the Health Optimization Summit in April in Austin, Texas. And when I met her, I knew right away, this is a powerhouse of a woman. I want to have her on my show. And today's episode is really eye-opening. We go beyond the basics and we go beyond what you might think is a typical conversation with somebody of her caliber. Dr. Amie is a top-rated podcast. She has her podcast called The Thyroid Fixer. She is a functional medicine practitioner. She is a doctor of clinical nutrition. And she has an entire practice devoted to helping people heal their thyroid, which is incredible. She helps women all over the globe and men, and really just focuses on the thyroid and how it's connected to everything. But in this episode, we actually didn't really talk about the thyroid, to be honest. We talked about what it's like to get a misdiagnosis. And what do you do with that? What do you do with that information? How do you move forward with that? Whether you're educated in health or you're not educated in health. And she talks about the multiple misdiagnoses that she had when she was younger and how she moved through that. And then we also talk about her most recent diagnosis of cancer. And this is such a sensitive topic to so many people. And I really just invite you to hear this conversation with an open mind and an open heart, because it is such a sensitive topic and it impacts so many people globally. My grandmother died of cancer, so I also have cancer in my family. And this is something that I really took to heart when I got to sit down and chat with her about this. This was a beautiful episode, and I'm just so glad that I got the privilege to speak to Dr. Amie. I hope to have her back on the show soon. And if you want to support her on her journey healing through cancer, uterine cancer, or you want to even heal your own thyroid and hear more about that and her approach, her holistic approach that's rooted in functional medicine, I will link everything in the show notes for you, and I will link her podcast as well. You can find her on Instagram, and just really, I think this is a really, really deep, grounded conversation that's going to hit home for a ton of listeners. So if you enjoy the show, I always love feedback. Feel free to send me a message. Feel free to rate the show. 5 stars really helps us to get seen out there. And otherwise, I will catch you soon for another episode. And before we dive in, a shout out to Peak. Peak is my go-to for matcha tea. They have a sun goddess matcha blend, and it's powder. It actually comes in powder sticks, like little sachets almost of it. And so it's individually portioned, which I love. So I don't need to take out a spoon or figure out how much I add to a cup. It's already done for you. And it's a ceremonial grade, highest quality, and I highly, highly recommend it. So that's Peak, spelled Pique. And you can use my discount code and my link in the show notes so you can save. They also have, oh my gosh, so many different types of teas, functional coffees, all sorts of things to really help start your day on the right foot. So enjoy this podcast episode, and I will catch you very soon for another one. Well, welcome back to the show. I am so excited to do this episode today. I am speaking with Dr. Amie Hornaman, who I actually had the pleasure of meeting in person at the Health Optimization Summit in April in Austin. And we got connected through some friends. And once I heard about her story, her expertise in the thyroid realm, I knew I had to have her on the show. Thyroid is definitely not something I know a lot about. So we are going to kind of dive into that. And we're also going to dive into her own health journey, what she's currently facing right now, and kind of how that can help other people as well. So, Dr. Amie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Brittany. Thanks for having me on. It was a pleasure meeting you in person. That was so much fun at HOS.
Yeah, that was so much fun. I will definitely be going back next year. And it was actually so cool to see how many women were there this time.
Yes, exactly. Well, I think, women's health is finally, thankfully, coming to the forefront, whether we're talking about podcasts or experts talking about the importance of women's health, or, we have celebrities like Halle Berry coming out saying, listen, I'm in menopause and it sucks. And here's the symptoms. So I feel like there is this movement now where women are getting much more attention, and rightly so.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you see that kind of in your practice when you're working with women? Do you feel like they're coming to you a bit more like educated almost now?
I do. I do. I feel like women have taken this time to really realize, and I would say it's much stronger in the last 4 or 5 years, to be their own voices, to be their own health advocates. And they're starting to recognize that the conventional medicine system does not 100% have our backs when it comes to optimization. Like, they're great at fixing a broken knee or, taking out a burst appendix. But when you start having conversations with your conventional doctor about hormones and what you can do to feel better as we age and this thing called longevity, you're just not gonna have an in-depth conversation with a conventional doctor. I'm sorry, but it's just the case. And now granted, there might be the random one out there that has decided to think outside of the box and dive into functional medicine and be able to have that kind of conversation with his or her patient. But the majority of the responsibility of our own health is on us. And I think women are starting to realize that.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I see that in the conversations that I'm having as well. But I also feel like there is this sense of almost like exhaustion that, like, why is this another thing that I have to become an expert in when it's like a mom and she's working and she's doing all of these different things. And then she's like, oh, now I have to suddenly understand functional medicine for myself. Like, why can't somebody just help me properly?
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's why we do what we do, trying to break down this information so that that busy mom can be listening to this podcast while she's running around doing a million different things, and just kind of download that information into her brain so that it's there, so that when a symptom pops up, or if she's living with these exact symptoms that we'll talk about, she can go, "Okay, you know what? There's a bell going off here for me, and I might need to look a little bit deeper into this." So it just starts with the information that we're giving people.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And when you started kind of working in this space, is that kind of what you went through yourself? Like, were you looking around for answers and couldn't find them? And then you were like, okay, I guess I got to teach myself?
Yeah, it was kinda like that. So for me, I was actually misdiagnosed 6 different times. And it was crazy going through that system, especially in my 20s. You're in your 20s, you're pretty much healthy and vibrant, and you're young, and things really aren't supposed to be going wrong with your body at that age. But I started gaining weight. Now, when we back up, I was actually doing fitness and figure competition. So I was in a hardcore diet and exercise regimen that, regardless of whether you believe in calories in, calories out or not, my body should not have been putting on pounds during that time. The scale should not have gone up 25 extra pounds when I'm eating broccoli and chicken and asparagus and hitting the gym twice a day. It just didn't even biologically make sense. So when that started happening, followed by the fatigue, followed by the hair loss, that's when I started going to my doctor because that's what you do. And back then I was not in this world whatsoever. I came from a medical family. My mom was a nurse. My sister's a geriatric doctor. And we had that baseline, medical knowledge per se, but I knew nothing about what was going on with my body. And it's really hard to think for yourself too. When your body's rebelling against you and you're going down this depression spiral, wondering what the hell's happening, why am I all of a sudden 25 plus pounds heavier? And, you don't really, you don't even go to your family for this discussion. You go right to the experts. I'll use that air quotes there. So I went to endocrinologists. I went to a guy that actually had his practice name was metabolic disease specialist. So start thinking, okay, metabolism. Yeah, I'm gaining weight. My metabolism's low. And he's a specialist too. So he's going to figure this out, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely not. I kept getting told that all my labs were normal. Now, I do not know what labs they ran. If I could go back in time and just kind of look from above that 10,000-foot view, I'm sure I would have seen half-ass labs done, but I didn't even know what labs they did at the time. They told me my labs are normal. Everything is fine. Just eat less and exercise more. That's all you have to do. And with each appointment being what I know now is medically gaslit. Oh, it's all in your head. Here's this BMI chart. You're okay. After multiple times of being medically gaslit, I mean, I look back and I go, well, thank God I didn't stop at doctor number 4. Because, I mean, 4 specialists in the metabolism or in the endocrine system are all telling me that there's nothing wrong and I'm fine. But I had 6 misdiagnoses, and thank God I kept going and I kept plugging away and I kept searching for answers because I didn't accept it. And that's when I had to step in and be my own patient advocate because if I listened to conventional medicine, I wouldn't be with you today. And then finally, for me, the 7th doctor actually diagnosed me. So she was an endocrinologist as well, but she was the first one to actually touch my throat. And she said, swallow. I'm like, okay. And she goes, oh, yeah, okay. I'm feeling some nodules on your thyroid. Your labs do show us that you have hypothyroidism. You actually have this autoimmune form called Hashimoto's. And here's a pill. Now, Brittany, I left her office pumped up. I'm like, yes, now I have it. I have the name for what's going on with me, and I have a pill that's going to fix me. And I gave it 5 months. And that pill being T4, Synthroid, Levo, did absolutely nothing. Now, I know now, based on the research I've done and based on my knowledge of the thyroid, that T4 only does not work. The stat that I always tell people is that T4 only works in 2% of the population of those with hypothyroidism. 98% of us need T4 and T3 or possibly T3 only. So even back then on my big ass gateway computer, I was Dr. Googling just like we all do. And I went back to her and I'm like, this pill you gave me, it's the inactive thyroid hormone. And there's this other one, it's the active thyroid hormone. It sounds really cool, T3. And I'm wondering if we couldn't pair those up together. Like, let's skip the middleman and give me some of the active thyroid hormone along with this inactive. And she goes, no, I don't do that. That's not standard of care. I said, okay, well, I'm going to find somebody who does. And that's what led me into functional medicine. That's what saved me. My functional medicine practitioner, spent 90 minutes with me, which every other doctor, it was a 5 to 7 minute visit per my insurance. And then I got the boot out of the office. God forbid I ask another question about my own health. So he spent 90 minutes with me, did more labs than I've ever had done in my life, and took the time to explain to me what my labs meant in conjunction with the symptoms that I was experiencing and just laid it all out and then put me on the right protocol for me to really address and fix my thyroid and bring me to optimization. And then that's why I changed careers. And that's why I'm here now doing what I do.
Wow. I can't believe you went through so many misdiagnoses.
Yeah.
Like, that's wild. In those moments, especially in your 20s, when you were misdiagnosed, how did you have the gumption or like the energy to go and be like, I'm going to go see somebody else? And then it happened again and again and again. Like, how did you just keep going in this like misinformation that you were constantly being thrown at?
Yeah, I think it's really that knowing. It's the knowing that I always talk about that we all have deep down inside that something isn't right. You know your body better than anyone, better than any doctor. You know your body, so you know when something just isn't sitting well, doesn't click, or you just know when something is off, that this isn't you. This isn't how you normally feel. This isn't how you normally look. This isn't how you normally think and process information. There's something going on that's off. And it's just a matter of listening to that and not giving up until I found someone with an answer.
Recently, my body has been telling me something was off. My skin has kind of lost its natural glow, and no amount of water has helped to keep me hydrated. And my energy has really just been all over the place. Tired in the mornings, crashy in the afternoon, wired at night. Definitely doesn't help when you have a baby. Then I found Peak's Radiant Skin Duo, and let me tell you, it's been actually such a game changer. This is a doctor recommended duo backed by experts like Dr. Mark Hyman, Dr. Will Cole, and it's designed to deeply hydrate and boost energy and support whole body wellness from the inside out. It low key has 15,000 5-star reviews, so I absolutely had to try it. And wow, within weeks, I have felt a difference. There is the Sun Goddess Matcha, which is my daily energy savior. Unlike coffee, which can leave me jittery and crashing, this gives me calm, sustained energy that lasts all day. It's packed with L-theanine for focus and EGCG antioxidants that really support firm, clear skin and gut health. Because let's be real, great skin starts in the gut. And then there are the BT Fountain electrolytes. And this is hydration on another level. I used to drink so much water and still feel dry and depleted by midday. And turns out my body just wasn't absorbing it properly. BT Fountain has clinically proven ceramides that actually lock in moisture at a cellular level, keeping my skin and my body hydrated from the inside out. And the glow, insane. I actually see a difference. Peak has such great purity as well. They go above and beyond with quadruple toxin screening, meaning they actually look at heavy metals, pesticides, and mold. And you know, many companies don't do that. There's no artificial junk, no sugar, nothing like that. Just clean, science-backed hydration and energy. I feel more hydrated, more energized, and more like myself than I have in a long time. And there's no more waking up exhausted, no more feeling dull, dry skin, and no more energy crashes. If you want to feel like I feel and you want the glow as well, and you're tired of being depleted, I highly suggest checking out Peak. They have their offer, which is 20% off plus a free rechargeable frother. I love this. I use mine all the time, and a free glass beaker. So you can go to my link to get this, which is peaklife.com/biohacking. And this will get you the 20% off and the free starter kit. Do not sleep on this. Your body and your skin will thank you. Right. Right. When you have people who come into your clinic and maybe they've been on like a similar journey and they're thinking like, oh, is she just going to give me a different diagnosis? Like, is there a way that you kind of educate patients in a different way so that it's more of an encouraging, positive experience rather than like, hey, you have this thing, good luck?
Oh my goodness, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, because we have the answers and we have the ability to fix people. So, we'll start with that patient that they already know. They know they have hypothyroidism. They know they have Hashimoto's. Maybe they've done the gamut of the conventional system and they're sick of that. And they've been to, 2 or 3 PCPs and 2 endocrinologists, and no one will give them anything except T4. And they keep changing their dose of T4. And maybe they've even gone to functional medicine and have been promised, oh, yeah, we can fix your thyroid. We're going to do a gut healing protocol, and that will fix all of your thyroid woes. or we're going to detox you from heavy metals and then your thyroid will be totally fine. And they come to us and they're like, yeah, well, now I'm down 10, 20, $30,000 with still no answers and I still don't feel good. We just go right for the black and white. We look at what is in front of us on your labs. Well, first of all, you have to test thoroughly. We want all of that information. We're not like conventional medicine where we say, all right, well, we're going to test this now. And then 6 weeks later, we're going to test something else. And maybe in 2 years, we'll be able to put all those pieces together and tell you what's going on. We just test it all up front because we want that. We want the entire puzzle in front of us.
Yeah.
So that when we ask you the four most important words that any practitioner sitting across from you can ask you, how do you feel? And you answer that, we get to put how you feel with those labs and pair it up, because the bottom line is that question and your answer to that question is more important than anything that we got out of your blood work, because how you feel tells us that there is something going on. So then we overlay that with your labs and we draw up a plan that is going to work. Now, as we move through that plan, there's tweaks that we make based on adjustments. How are you absorbing the medication, the thyroid hormone, or the sex hormones, or whatever we're doing, the peptides, whatever. It's about
Mhm.
tracking and tweaking, but we ultimately get you to that optimized place. So whether we're sitting across from somebody, even for the first time, going, "Oh, did you know you have Hashimoto's? Oh, no one's ever told you that? All right, well, not a big deal. You have Hashimoto's, but not a problem. We're going to fix that." I sat across from people going, "Did you know that you were a diabetic? No, no one's ever told you that. Okay, well, for the past 5 years, your A1C has been screaming diabetes. But again, not a problem. We can totally reverse that." So
Yeah.
even if you hear something for the first time from us, it's just the process of putting the puzzle pieces together where we just go, yeah, that's here, but not a thing. We got that. It's okay."
Yeah. I actually love that because sometimes when we are diagnosed or there's a label put on us, we like attach to it and it becomes a part of our identity. But then what if we heal from that? Like, and then you're still attached to that identity. Like, do you ever truly let go if someone is like, you know, you've got diabetes for life? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. No, exactly. That's a great point. And many of the things that we deal with, it's reversible. And even if it's not, like, let's take Hashimoto's, for example. We can push our antibodies to zero, but even if we don't, like, let's say we get them down to 20 or 50 or 100, and you feel great and you're living your best life and you're operating, at a
Mhm.
80% healthy level most of the time, I'm not really worried about that.
Mm.
It's okay. Those antibodies can hang out and yeah, okay, you still have Hashimoto's, but you're living your best life. So it really comes down to how you're feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you balance it though? Like I think back to when I kind of got like I say kind of because I was in a walk-in clinic, didn't have a family doctor. This doctor said, "You might have PCOS." And I was like, "Okay, I don't know what that is." And I was, I think, like 26. And I honestly freaked out. Like, I was like, what does this mean for my fertility, for my, if I want to have kids? And like, I kind of like blacked out, honestly, after the diagnosis. Like, I had a full body reaction. It was like pretty scary, actually. And then it kind of became my mission to like not let that be my life and put it into remission and just like completely whatever you want to say, biohack my fertility, whatever you want to say. Um, so how do you balance that of like, hey, I actually want to do something about this diagnosis that I got and I want to be like on it and smart and make healthier choices, but I also don't want it to take over my life and identify with it because I, as a woman, I am more than just this one label that someone might have told me.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I have or slash had PCOS as well, polycystic ovarian syndrome. So I know that diagnosis very well too.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's absolutely something that you can heal from, reverse, put into remission, whatever you want to categorize it as. But the whole it to your question as to what do we do when we get that diagnosis, I
Mm.
think it's just a matter of it's just another piece of the puzzle. It's just another, I don't even want to use the term label because we don't want you to label yourself. It's just another marker that points us in a direction and gives us the information that we need to better help you.
Mhm.
So, okay, someone says to you, okay, Brittany, you might have PCOS. Well, we want to know, do you actually have little cysts on your ovaries? Are they just diagnosing that because you're skipping a couple cycles? Are you actually the testosterone dominant, androgen dominant PCOS? Or is that not really an issue, but you're the progesterone deficient PCOS with maybe a little bit of estrogen dominance? Are you insulin resistant or not with that PCOS? So there's so many layers to something like polycystic ovarian syndrome that we can break down and address each layer. Ultimately, that's going to get your cycles back, going to get your fertility back. Oh my God, we have thyroid, of course, with PCOS as well, because there's such a strong correlation.
Mm.
Get you insulin sensitive out of that insulin resistant state, address the low hormones, however we want to do that. And then once we do that, we can look at a person and go, okay, this is pretty much in your past now.
Yeah.
And I mean, you've overcome that on your own. You have a beautiful baby. You did not experience infertility. I don't know about your road to getting there, if that was a little bit rocky, but you're proof positive that you can overcome that label that you were given years ago and
Yeah.
basically say, no, screw you. I'm not going to live in the label of PCOS and then let that absorb into my mind and my body that I'm never gonna have a baby, I'm never gonna have a baby, I'm never gonna have a baby. Well, if that keeps looping in your head from that label, then that's a whole other podcast about our thoughts being powerful and
Mhm.
affecting our body. But yeah, you're proof positive that you overcame that.
Yeah. Yeah, and it definitely takes a sense of, like, willpower and also trust. Like, trust in yourself over the medical system that, like, I can figure this out, I can do this. But again, it falls back on the individual rather than the medical system, and that is a lot for a lot of people. Like, it feels very overwhelming to be like Dr. Google or listening to the podcast, and they're like, "Oh, now I'm insulin sensitive. I might be this, but, like, what does that even mean?" And, like, it can get so confusing and so overwhelming so quickly. And that's the thing with the wellness movement in general. Like, it's amazing, but also, like, for the average person, it's gotta be a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you there. It can be very overwhelming.
Mhm.
We're almost lucky in that we're in the field and we're surrounded by really knowledgeable people that we can almost we know how to block out the misinformation and the bad and then only take in the good. But if I put myself in the shoes of a consumer, of one of our audience members, listen, oh my gosh, there's a
Yeah.
lot of information and it can
Yeah.
be very overwhelming.
Yeah, even if you walk down, like, a supplement aisle in a grocery store, I'm like, how are they supposed to choose what B vitamin to take when, like, they're all marketed in different ways and natural this, and it's the green bottle with the leaves, and they make everything look so like a fake, or what is it called? Like greenwashed or whatever.
Yeah.
It's so hard.
Yeah. You're so right. Yeah. I mean, again, as consumers, we
Yeah.
might just see the green and it doesn't matter if we're buying it from Costco or Walmart. It's a green bottle, so I'm going to get it cuz it must
Yeah.
be good for me because it has the word nature on the front. I don't know. It's a
Yeah.
crazy world out there.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's overwhelming. Where are you at with your health today? And do you want to talk about your most recent diagnosis?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really open about it. So, I was recently diagnosed with uterine cancer and that came that came about through it's kind of a crazy story that I really haven't told the details on yet, but I'll tell it here. I was doing rhythmic dosing of hormones because as biohackers, we like to experiment on ourselves before we actually, let's say, use it on a patient. So whether it's peptides, yeah, I was doing Monjaro when it first came out, just experimenting a little bit, and then went, oh yeah, you really do lose facial fat and muscle with a higher dose. Look at that. So same thing with rhythmic dosing of hormones, I had heard many positive things about the Wiley protocol and rhythmic dosing. So I'm like, okay, I want to try it out. I actually do really, really well with high hormone doses. So I never felt like I was estrogen dominant, nothing like that. But the crazy thing is that I was not bleeding. And it's funny because when you have uterine cancer, people go, "Oh, what happened? Were you bleeding in menopause?" I go, "No, the opposite. Like, not a drop of blood at all." And I was supposed to, because when you rhythmic dose those hormones, the whole concept is to induce a cycle and bring us back to the hormonal youth we were in our 20s and 30s as we're having a 28-day cycle. So I wasn't bleeding. And I'm pretty sure like T.S. Wiley herself was like, what's going on with this woman? So I went and actually got an ultrasound to check the uterine lining and then had a biopsy. Well, the biopsy came back atypical hyperplasia, just atypical cells. And at that point in time, and I actually done a podcast on it, I said, okay, the doctors want to take my uterus just because I have a few atypical cells. And their whole theory is that, okay, 30 to 40% of atypical cells in the uterus do turn cancerous. But I refused at that point in time to totally give up my uterus and to succumb to the hysterectomy. And then the last biopsy that was done in April did show that those cells had turned cancerous. Now, as of like right now, this morning, I had a PET scan done and I'm waiting on the results of that because there's just a part of me that really feels like it's not there. Now, if it is there, I will deal with it. That's fine. But even having the beginning of our conversation about being misdiagnosed 6 different times, it kind of reminded me. And I went, well, 6 doctors can misdiagnose me with hypothyroidism when I had it. Can one pathologist read the sample wrong and say that I have cancer and I don't? Because I just it's not it's this feeling that I have that I really don't have it. So, again, if I'm proven wrong and I do, I will deal with it, and I am exploring, though, in the meantime, between now and a possible surgery, I am exploring all of these different alternative therapies to cancer and the world of alternative therapies in cancer because it's pretty huge. And if you want to talk about the overwhelm, now I do know how people feel when they start exploring thyroid and hormones because the overwhelm of information out there on cancer and alternative therapies for cancer, that's overwhelming in and of itself. But there's a few of them that really they're very intriguing. They hold a lot of ground. They have a lot of evidence, anecdotal evidence and documented evidence of reversals of cancer, especially when they're stage 1, grade 1. So I'm also kind of going down that rabbit hole, and I haven't quite decided how I'm going to attack this if it is indeed there.
Yeah. Wow. I think that's so powerful that potentially, like, intuitively, you feel like this actually might not be happening for you.
Yeah, and kind of going back to what you said about the label. You alluded to it, and it kinda hit me when you said that too. I'm like, as soon as you hear the C word, whether you like it or not, it gets embedded in you. And sorry, I might get a little emotional. I'm trying to not let it do that. Because I know once you take that on as a disease, and we hear this from people all the time when they're talking about whatever diagnosis they have and not letting it become a part of who they am and not accepting it as a label, it gets a lot harder when you hear C. And it's almost like you immediately fall into this category of I'm one of those people that I never wanted to be, hearing that C diagnosis. And now I'm immediately on a whole different journey than what I had planned an hour ago for my life, right?
Yeah.
And it's like your life just gets jolted out of whack. But really, the goal for myself, as I work every hour on, and the goal for everyone is to not let that define you. And it's such a broad cliche phrase, right? But when you really break it down, it's I'm not going to be so consumed by a label put on me from a test that may or may not be right, from a conventional medicine system that is broken. I can't let that define my whole life. And I do have choices and I do have options, and I wanna fight to make the best choice for my body based on the information that I have. But I really feel like people need to step back, take a breath, and take time whenever, whether it's a Hashimoto's diagnosis or a cancer diagnosis, you need to step back and take a breath and really look at all of your options and then decide what path you're gonna go down and walk that path. You can change paths at any time if something isn't working or whatever, but I know that's a really broad, answer to your question, but that's basically it, is that it's a battle to not let a diagnosis define you, and I don't do well at it every single day, but I'm doing my best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you done any, like, meditative or energetic work with it or on it at all?
Yeah, I think I've done everything. So yeah, definitely I did medical Reiki. I've done, Joe Dispenza meditations on it for sure. And then, just pretty much every therapy you could possibly imagine. I even thought, one of these days I need to make an Instagram reel of just I'm doing this and doing this and doing this and doing this and doing that, from hyperbaric to red light to
Yeah.
ivermectin, fenbendazole, AHCC, apricot seeds, chlorine dioxide, deuterium depleted water. I mean, just I'm hitting it with everything, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just interesting, like, I just wonder, and I don't know the answer, but, there's this book I was reading that talked about how certain health conditions that come up can point to our past and our history and, like, kind of especially as women, especially if they're about PCOS or things like this, and I just think it'd be interesting to, like, meditate on it and, like, look at your life and, like, I don't know, maybe connect the dots. Like, I did that when I had my PCOS situation, and it was pretty profound.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I believe in that too. I think,
Mhm.
who knows where these different I don't even wanna use the term disease, medical conditions or
Mhm.
imbalances in our body, who knows where they actually come from? And I
Yeah.
think sometimes we might not ever know, is it the glyphosate that's being sprayed 2 blocks down the road on a farm? Or, is it something from my past or trauma? Who knows? But that's sometimes where you just have to throw everything you have at it and hope that something clicks to uncover the direction that you have to go.
Yeah, I think it's pretty powerful to, like, kind of do what you're doing and navigate it, and you're kind of attacking it from all directions, which is exactly probably what I would do as well, um, without trying to feel overwhelmed and without trying to, like, identify with it. But
Yeah.
it's so difficult because you're just like, especially for someone like you have so much knowledge and you're just applying it to yourself, but it's like also disassociating with it is extremely difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you nailed it. It's you have the knowledge, but it's really hard to think for yourself too. I mean, that's even why we have a slew of doctors, NPs, functional diagnostic nutritionists as patients because it's hard to think for yourself when it's your own health. And then, yeah, when you take it to another level like cancer, that's where I've been relying on my colleagues and the people that literally have spent their life diving into this type of research and who can sit back and go, okay, let's do this, this, and this. Stop
Mhm.
throwing everything but the kitchen sink at it. It's good, but let's really figure out exactly what you need. And that takes a lot of the stress off. And that's why I think working with a specialist in your area is in your area of where you live, but in the area that you are dealing with, whether it's thyroid or hormones or autoimmune, working with a specialist, having that guide to guide you, it takes a lot of stress and pressure off of you.
Yeah.
And it just gives you that framework of okay, I'm just going to let them direct me. And I'm going to use my own intuition as to, okay, this feels right. This doesn't feel right. But letting someone else take the reins just lets you be able to sit back and take care of yourself and just trust the process.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's beautiful. And like piecing in the intuition as well, because women are so intuitive. And I think we're just so taught to like numb it out and not listen to our gut feelings. And not just about health, like about so many different things. Um, but time and time again, like the more it's like a muscle almost, like the more you trust your instincts, the better it gets, the stronger it gets. And then when it like pings you about something, it's so clear in your mind, at least for me, it's so clear. And then I can like trust that and go with that versus in the beginning where you're like, oh, maybe I'll just listen to this one person or, this influencer online says this one thing. Okay, so I'm just going to try that, even though it might not feel like aligned with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
When you have clients come into your clinic and you're kind of talking about this, are you sharing this with them right now? Or are you kind of like trying to, I guess, keep it a bit more boundaries and like who you're sharing with, I guess?
Yeah, no. I'm open about it. I'm sharing it if people ask, I'll tell them. And really the biggest thing that I've started kind of shouting from the rooftops is I believe that static dosing of hormones is totally fine. But even if you are static dosing, meaning just the same dose all the time,
Right.
it might mean that if you're a cycling woman, you're taking progesterone days 14 to 28 of your cycle. You probably don't need estradiol yet, but maybe you have some testosterone on board. Or you're a menopausal woman and we have you on all three hormones and you're pretty much doing the same dose with maybe some minor fluctuations or a hormone holiday here and there throughout the course of a month. Those individuals, I would say, do some type of Dutch test or some type of urine metabolite test. I know there's a bunch of them out there. I'm not married to the Dutch test, but just some type of test so that how do you actually methylate and process your hormones? How do you metabolize those hormones? Because if I would have paid attention to my Dutch test in 2022, and then stack that with the DNA testing that I did, both of them showed that I do not metabolize estrogen very well, and I have a tendency toward estrogen dominance. Now, I could overlay my PCOS diagnosis too from years ago, where I knew I was progesterone deficient and estrogen dominant. And if I would have taken that information, I most likely would have made different decisions on the hormone dosing that I was doing, possibly not going up as high in my estrogen. And again, to this day, I don't know what fueled my cancer. Is it genetics because my gram had uterine cancer? Again, is it because I live in Iowa and I have glyphosate being sprayed all around me? I don't think we'll ever know the actual true cause. But what I want women to do is to, number one, I mean, even if you're on static dosing of hormones, get some kind of urine metabolite test once a year. Do it once a year, just so you and your provider can look at it and go, well, you know what? It looks like you're pushing this estrogen down the wrong pathways. Let's implement some strategies to push it down the right pathways. And doing these tests, it doesn't mean that somebody's going to be like, oh my God, you can't use hormones at all. No, that's not the point. The
Mhm.
point is to really start dialing in and customizing your exact protocol so we can go, okay, let's use estrogen, but maybe in someone like myself, we don't do rhythmic dosing, or we take that peak dose of estrogen and let's just bring that down here. Let's cut it in half or even in a quarter, and let's bring that lower. So you're still getting a fluctuation in your hormones, but you're not getting such a high dose of estrogen because you don't really metabolize your estrogen very well and you're going to push it down these bad pathways. I
Mm.
think knowing that information is power.
Yeah.
And I think that can have a whole other layer of prevention and protection on women as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think data is power here. And you do have to be careful to not overdo it. But something like a Dutch test, I don't think you could overdo it. I think it's very helpful. And like I've done it and it is helpful and it can give you insights on kind of like the right way to go. But as someone who's done the Dutch test, just by myself and like talking with the company and things like this, having a practitioner with you to guide you would be a million times easier. Because when you get the Dutch test back, and it's same with a lot of tests, actually, the amount of information you get back, you're like, holy smokes, I don't understand what this means. What am I supposed to do now? Okay, like avoid these foods. Okay, great. I hope that helps. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're so right. I mean,
yeah.
we've had patients that have brought their Dutch test to us and like, "Can you look at this?" And I'm like, "Well, this was ordered a year ago. Did no one ever sit down and tell you the results?" They go, "No, they just ordered it for me." I'm like, "This is not a test that you just order, you give to a patient and say, 'Good luck, try to interpret this, go watch a YouTube video.'" Like, no, you should really have somebody, like you said, going over it. But yeah, and listen, I know that the Dutch is flawed, like many of the tests are flawed. I actually had Betty Murray read my Dutch test live on one of my recent podcasts. And she broke it down what we're seeing, but she also said, here's some things that are missing in these tests that she still to this day has not found a testing facility that will test for the estrone sulfate because she wanted to see the sulfation pathway. And she's like,
Wow.
there's not a dried urine test out there that tests the sulfation pathway. So there's things that are missing,
Yeah.
but the information that we do get, I think, is very valuable. And
Yeah.
again, even if it's something that you only do once a year, once every 2 years, I mean, just to stay on top of you and your hormones and your pathways, I think it's valuable.
Yeah. You mentioned some, I don't want to say protocols, but you mentioned some ideas that you have around things that could help with this cancer diagnosis if it is true and it is there. Things that you're interested in. If you want to share a couple of those, I feel like my audience would really like that, especially if this is something that they're also dealing with.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is going to require them to go on their own little exploratory
Mhm.
path as well, because I have just begun my exploration. So I do not claim to be an expert in either of these topics. However, go ahead and start researching chlorine dioxide because your minds are going to explode. Again, I'm probably a week into my exploration of chlorine dioxide, what it does, how it's made, all these different things, especially as it relates to cancer. And it is crazy. It's almost one of those things where, okay, it sounds too good to be true.
Mhm.
However, it is mind blowing how it affects the body on so many different levels. It's anti-pathogenic. It's completely safe. We're seeing autistic kids totally heal from the use of chlorine dioxide. There's multiple anecdotal cases of stage 3, stage 4 cancers being reversed or extension of life just by introducing chlorine dioxide. So that's one of those. It's probably going to be, this podcast will be flagged because we actually said the word out loud, right? Kind of like ivermectin was in 2020. You couldn't actually say that, but very much along the lines of something like ivermectin. It's one of those, it's so inexpensive. It cannot be patented. It will never, ever be made into a Pfizer drug. So therefore, you're not going to hear about it. You're not going to hear about it. It's not going to be talked about from your doctor because it's too cheap and they can't write a prescription for it. So big pharma is going to lose. And when we follow the money trail, we follow the money trail. Deuterium depleted water. I've heard
Mhm.
a couple of podcasts on that in the past. Of course, I look at it like, oh, no, I'm not going to listen to that one until you have to listen to it. And then you start going down the rabbit hole of deuterium depleted water. And you go, oh my gosh, there's something here. This is crazy what it can do to the body. And it's something so simple. It's removing the deuterium out of our water. And and what that deuterium depleted water can do for the body and for healing. And then of course we have ivermectin, fenbendazole, red light therapy. Okay, yeah. I know the red light is great for your face and for collagen. And that's how I've always used my little panel. But I had no idea that it can actually change mitochondrial function.
Mhm.
And it can have a huge impact on areas where you might have an imbalance, i.e. cancer. And so shining that red light, right on my abdominal area, hitting
Yeah.
the uterus. I'm doing that as well. And I mean,
Nice.
again, you start looking at the research and the studies. HBOT is another one. Hyperbaric oxygen. I'm doing exercise with oxygen therapy as well. So I jump up a Carol bike and I have this big bag of oxygen behind me with a mask,
Nice.
basically super saturating the body because cancer
Yeah.
can survive. Really, most diseases cannot survive in an alkaline environment and an oxygenated environment. So
Mm.
hypersaturating is basically the same thing we do with HBOT. Hypersaturating
Yeah.
my with oxygen, also very beneficial. So yeah, those are just some of the, kind of out of
Yeah.
the box thinking. Of course, there's parasite protocols. I've been doing that as well. People posted that on Instagram. We're doing a parasite party. Yes, yes, I'm doing that.
Ah.
Coffee enemas. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm doing that too. So yeah, knows what's gonna hit it in the right way if it's there.
Mm.
If it's there,
Yeah.
but yeah, the chlorine dioxide I think is the most fascinating of all of them to
Interesting.
really start looking at the research and you go, wow, okay, why is this under wraps? Why is this not being talked about more?
Yeah. Yeah, I've never even heard of that. So I actually want to research it after this just to like get a little sense and understanding of it. It's funny how sometimes simple solutions like that are just kind of hidden from humanity.
I know. I know. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, we experienced it 4 or 5 years ago,
Yeah.
So yeah.
Oh,
And then Rogan got blasted for talking about what was it, a horse dewormer? Well, no, it's called the cure for COVID. So, I don't know. I don't know. I don't wanna turn into a political podcast, but yeah.
yeah, and on the note of the red light therapy, I actually did that a lot. There's a device called Kineon, and I can send it to you, and it's a red light lasers, and they have a strap, and I strap it to my body, and I did it for fertility during pregnancy, and now to heal my C-section scar, and it's been incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny with the red light, I often say, like, I've tried to find studies debunking the effects on, let's say, the thyroid,
Mm.
and I can't find any. They're all positive. It's like, no, it
Oh,
really does help the thyroid to produce more thyroid hormone, and it helps with the function of the thyroid, helps with the function of all of our cells. It really is wild, the benefits of red
yeah.
light.
Yeah. Yeah, and is it through just I guess its function on mitochondria that's in the thyroid gland?
That's one thing yeah, I couldn't tell you the specifics on
Mm.
exactly how.
Yeah.
It's just me trying to look for something out there, like a paper going, "Yeah, okay, yeah, it's BS."
Yeah.
It really doesn't, it's just you're just shining a red light on yourself, that's it. But honest to God, I can't find a negative
Hmm.
paper, a negative study, and usually there's always balance, like, even if you look up, you know, a study on, I don't even know, like keto and cancer, let's say.
Yeah.
You're gonna find 5 papers that are like, "Well, hell yeah, it actually works," and then one paper's like, "Oh, yeah, maybe plant-based is better." But I can't find that negative paper on red light that says that it doesn't work. It works. It absolutely works.
Yeah. That's incredible. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense, and I'm glad it's gained so much popularity in the last 5 years. Because I remember, like, 5 or even more than that, like, I just remember there being, like, one company that was producing them, and now it's, like, so much more mainstream, which is nice. And I'm sure you obviously, you get the thyroid neck devices
Oh, yeah.
that, like, just strap right on. Just
Yeah,
brilliant.
exactly. Yeah, get one of the face masks so you can do your
Yeah.
face and then just bring it down here, and then you get, like, double duty. Yeah.
I can do that because I have a face mask. I should put it on my thyroid. That's a
There
great
you go, yeah. And
I
also the
never even
turkey
thought
neck
about
too.
that
You don't have to worry about that yet, but as you get into your, like, 50s,
as a
then
com
you wanna build that collagen in the neck.
Yeah. If you were to, leave some parting words for the women listening who potentially are also going through something like you're going through right now, who maybe don't have as much knowledge and expertise and even ability to kind of like stand up for yourself, which you have, what would you say to them if they're listening?
So, first of all, you have to start with hope.
Mm.
I don't care if you're just dealing with weight gain that's driving you crazy and no one's telling you what's going on with your body, or to the other end of the spectrum, like a big bad diagnosis where you're just floored and paralyzed and don't know which way to move. First, you have to start with hope that things can change and get better. Because if we don't have that, we're going to remain paralyzed and we're not going to do anything.
Right.
So you have to have that. Then it would be, if you don't feel like you have the strength and the power and the energy to search anymore or to advocate for yourself, pick your best friend, like tag somebody. It might not even be your spouse. It might, but you got to pick somebody that just cares so deeply for you that they go, listen, I got you. Just sit there and let me make some phone calls for you and let me do some research for you and let me bring you the information. I mean, honestly, I found out about my cancer diagnosis in April and I didn't post about it online until beginning of June. And I shouldn't have waited that long. If
Wow.
I would have posted about it in the beginning of April, I would have had those caring individuals who reached out a few weeks ago with all this information, offering to help, offering to meet with me, giving me their time, their energy, their knowledge. I would have had that a couple months ago. So being silent is probably the worst thing that I or anyone can do. You have to be vocal about it because that's when the help comes. And that's when you realize you don't have to figure this out and do everything on your own.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's what I would say.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just think there's so much power in our voice and when we can connect with other people and connect with other women. And also what you said about like tagging someone in to help you is a really, really smart idea. And it doesn't have to be for forever, but until you get that strength, like just bring someone in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because believe it or not, people that care about you will do that in a heartbeat.
Oh, yeah. Like I
Yeah.
think about the people right now who, if they asked me to do that, I would do it. I would stay up all night and just get it done.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. No question. Amazing. Well, if people want to connect with you and they have more questions or maybe they want to work with you, where can they do that?
Absolutely. So you can go to my website at dramie.com. So DRAMIE, real simple. And on there, if you are interested in working with us, you can book a free discovery call, talk to a member of my team. We'll go over everything that you've done already and with your health and what you haven't done and what we need to explore. If you're not quite ready for that yet, we do have an amazing Facebook group. It's called the Just Fix Your Thyroid Facebook group. If you're not on Facebook, it might actually be a time to jump on just to be in this group. The support, the love, the information that you get in here is off the chart. So you can literally post your labs, talk about the medication that you're on, how you're feeling, and get real time feedback from myself, from my nurse practitioners, from my patients that have been with me for 10 years now, and they can basically answer questions like I would because they know exactly what I'm gonna say, right? So we have admins in there that are helping out, that just the love, support, and the real information that you get in this group, the scientific based information is really unprecedented. I mean, I've been in Facebook groups before where they're pushing MLM supplements and they're pushing, BS protocols. And that's not what this group is about. It really is to educate and empower. It is to answer the questions of the people out there going, hey, these are my labs and my doctor has me on this medication and I'm still gaining weight, but they tell me that it's normal. What gives? What do I do here?
Mhm.
That's really where you get the information.
I love that. Community is huge.
Community. It's
It's
huge.
huge for healing. It's
Yes.
huge. Well, thank you so much. This has been great. And I will have to bring you back on the show in a few months and hear an update. I'm so curious and I'm so hopeful for you.
Well, thank you, Brittany. I would love to do that. And this has been great being here with you today.
Thank you for listening to Biohacking with Brittany, where women optimize. If you love this episode, share it, subscribe, and leave a review to help more women step into science-backed, soul-led wellness. To go deeper, check out the show notes for upcoming retreats, live events, my course, and the latest on socials. Until next time, keep listening to your body, trusting your intuition, and optimizing every step of the way.